The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local journalism today at chly.ca/donate. Local news doesn't survive without local support.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. Members of the arts community in the Comox Valley are rallying in the face of the potential suspension of the Fine Arts program at North Island College. Fine Arts is one of 15 different programs that have been recommended for suspension following a review process. A final decision is expected to come from the school's Board of Governors at a February 5th meeting. The potential suspensions come in the context of many post-secondary institutions across the province facing financial challenges that have impacted programming. Faculty, alumni, and members of the wider arts community say that the potential loss of the program will have a ripple effect in the Comox Valley. We'll hear from some of those artists on today's program.
My name is Scott Bertram. I'm an artist, and I've been a sessional teacher at North Island College for the past 9 years, where I live in Comox.
And could you give me a sense of how the Fine Arts program at North Island College has evolved over those 9 years that you've been involved with it, and maybe how many students approximately are enrolled right now? Yeah,
so there have been some changes with the program, and some of those changes took place before I was an employee there. There was previously a partnership with Emily Carr, and that sort of dissolved before I got there, so I can't speak to that. Since I've been there, there have been various changes in terms of like our integration with the digital design department at Fine Arts. There was a time when we were together and then sort of apart and then back together. Again, like being a sessional contract instructor, like I can't speak to the specifics of a lot of those things, but this was what I observed. So for many years, we had multiple sections of each of the classes. So like a drawing one would have, 2 or sometimes 3 sections. And that continued for a while. Obviously with COVID, like with every other school, we were hit hard in terms of a lot of resources and what we could do. And this was especially the case for the Fine Arts department. Being such like a visual activity was challenging to do over Zoom, essentially. But we were able to persevere through that. And then in the last few years, some of the double sections were reduced. Again, some of those reasons I can't speak to specifically, but it seems strange because especially for the first year classes, we always had wait lists, and it seemed like there was enough people signing up for the courses that we could have easily run 2 sections of a lot of those first year courses, but were restricted to just one. So those have been some of the changes. And then most recently in the spring of last year, 2025, the first round of cuts happened, and the most significant impact on the Fine Arts was the suspension. I don't know if that's the correct term or how they're framing it, but of the ceramics program, which was a huge loss to the community. We're one of only less than a handful ceramics programs in BC. And this is another program that's hugely popular, constant wait lists. I've even tried to get in as a student myself to learn from Gordon Hutchins. And I could never get in. So it was like the wait list was that long, like you had to sign up immediately and then all the spots were gone. So the reasoning for canceling this program is a bit of a mystery to me. And then where we are now is with possible suspension of the program entirely, sort of looming over us.
So your understanding is that these courses, as of very recently, have been popular, have been in demand, and there have been wait lists for them?
Yeah, for sure. Especially the first year classes. Sometimes that peters out in the second year a little bit, partially because some people transfer to another institution, or they're decide all they need is the 1 year. Like there's many different reasons. But all of our first year classes almost always are completely at capacity with a long wait list as well.
What have you heard? So, context, this is one of 15 programs facing potential suspension at North Island College. What have you heard as to what the rationale is for this being among those programs facing potential suspension?
Well, there hasn't been a ton of transparency or consultation with the faculty or community during the process. So, I mean, ultimately, everything is financial. These are the reasons for it. And then they're also stating that it has to do with a sort of like vocational training reasoning, like what are the jobs that people are getting afterwards, and like how is the department assisting in that. So, but even the process of how they're collecting this information has been like a little bit foggy as far as our perspective. So this is something that, that is part of their reasoning, but they haven't been completely transparent about.
Well, how have you seen this program feed into the art scene in the Comox Valley over the close to a decade that you've been involved with it?
Yeah, so a good number of people finish the diploma, which is the 2-year program, and then transfer into other institutions. So we do have like direct transfer agreements with several institutions. So we've had students complete their degree at Emily Carr in Vancouver, BIU and UVic, and then we also have a transfer agreement with Alberta University of the Arts in Calgary. But we've also seen students go outside of that and transfer into NASCAD University in Halifax, Concordia University in Montreal. So that's one pathway, is that people continue their education, and then often, will come back to the Valley. We've had a lot of students do internships through the Comox Valley Art Gallery. And in fact, the curator now, I don't know if you're speaking to Denise or not, but she completed the fine arts program, and I'm sure that she would say that was absolutely essential for her landing the role that she's in now as the curator of the gallery here. And then we have other people who have taken more of a design route after the program, started their own business, different sort of avenues like that. So NIC ends up being, for the fine arts program, a large part of the art community here.
What does this potential suspension mean for you?
Yeah, well, for me, as I mentioned before, I'm a sessional instructor, which means I'm a contract worker, which means essentially that I have no job security. So I can never count that I have classes in the following year. So for me, it finalizes that, I suppose. But more specifically, more importantly, it's such a huge part of the Valley, and so many of the students that I've taught have been they just don't have the ability to move elsewhere. So whether this is because they have family here, or a partner, or perhaps they have a business and they're taking part-time classes. Some of them are just too young to pick up and move to Vancouver, because we also have lots of dual credit students, which means that people can complete some of the fine arts courses while they're still in high school, get high school credit for those courses, as well as get college credit for those courses. So if this program ceases to exist, then the ability for people to access this art education will only be for those who can move to a different place, essentially, usually a more metropolitan place.
What kind of conversations have you had with others in the local arts community since news of the potential suspension of the program has become public?
Yeah, it's for a lot of people, it's been a lot of shock and disappointment. There's a really vibrant scene up here, even though we are, more remote. in terms of like the arts community, and even for people who haven't taken the NIC program, they recognize its importance in educating people about art here. So yeah, the arts community is very upset because also the thing with an arts education is one of the things we really need is like space and equipment, and often like specialized equipment that you can't just happen upon anywhere. You could argue that you could, have a drawing practice, let's say, and learn through books and online and be able to set yourself up a little studio in a spare room. But that's not the case if you're studying printmaking or ceramics or the various like sculptural tools and stuff that we have there. So these are all sort of like essential to the community college part of the fine arts department.
The language around this that the college has been emphasizing is suspensions rather than cuts. Do you have any idea of the significance of that difference, what that means? Does that mean anything to you?
I think that there's not actually very much difference. There may be like different policies or procedures that they're able to undertake if they're calling it a suspension or a cancellation. But my worry is that once the program has been shut and its faculty laid off and the studios and office space reallocated and the prospective students turned away and its community partners have moved on and all of its assets, like I mentioned, the printing presses, etc., all these things have been redistributed, then cancellation is basically like a non-decision after this point. Like once we've unloaded all of those assets, there's not going to be much of a decision to make about whether we should move from suspension to cancellation or move from suspension to getting the program back. From my perspective, I'm not sure what the plan is with the physical assets themselves, but.
Now, my understanding is, again, that this is one of 15 programs that it's been recommended be suspended, and that the college's board will be deciding on whether or not that happens at a meeting on February 5th. What are your hopes and or your expectations for what will happen at that meeting?
Well, my hope is that it seems like the arts community is really rallying around this, and my hope is that will have an effect on their decision making for it, and that they'll see that they can't just quietly cancel this program without it having a massive effect on the community, even people who aren't artists or directly involved in that way. Like I think that many people in the community recognize the benefit of the creative minds that are in the valley. So this is my hope, and a lot of petitions have been going around, as well as advice to email, specific people, just like giving their perspective, their story about why they took the program or what it means to them. So both students and alumni, as well as just people in the community as well. From my own perspective, I haven't been a student at NIC, but I did start my undergrad at a more rural place, at least it was at the time, in Kelowna, BC. And part of the reason why I entered the fine arts program in this institution was because it was an easier decision for me at that age, like just out of high school. So the ability to take a chance on a program that I wasn't 100% sure on, it was less of a risk if I could continue to live at home. It was cheaper than, UBC or Emily Carr or something. And so that's sort of how I started into my path with my relationship with art. And, my perspective completely changed once I got into the program, but I would have not taken that first step if it meant picking up my whole life and moving to Vancouver or something like that.
I think it's important to highlight in this conversation that ultimately these program suspensions, as you've mentioned, are down to financial matters or motivated by financial concerns, changes to the post-secondary financing system, fewer international students coming in, meaning less revenue coming in. There's something that schools all across the province are experiencing. Is there anything you think it's important to highlight or bring to the conversation about specifically the financial side of this? Is the fine arts program particularly expensive to run and administer? Is there anything you think people need to know about that side of things?
I don't know that I can speak to that very accurately. I would say, like you mentioned, that this obviously comes from government regulations and changes that are being imposed upon the colleges, and not just our institutions, but all institutions. Many have had departments shut. Sometimes entire institutions have been shut. And so, I suppose it would be unfair to say that there are people on the NIC board who are excited to see the fine arts go. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. They're sort of reacting to mandates that are imposed upon them. But the fine arts program is just such an important part of the community, and not just for people who are just out of high school looking for like a career path, but often for people who have just finished their career and have been waiting for the last 40 years to be able to dive into learning more about art and dedicating themselves to that, as well as many life stages in between. Like, this is one of the things I don't know that other departments have, but we have such a wide range of people taking our courses, which is makes for a very vibrant learning situation, but also I think makes it really important to so many more people in the community, not just people who are looking for vocational training.
Now, again, there are 15 programs. Not all of them are related to the arts, but I am reminded of the fact that Vancouver Island University in Nanaimo has canceled its music programs, which were something that existed in some way, shape, or form since that had been an educational institution of any kind, which obviously predates these particular financial challenges or the creation of the system that maybe led to having enough finances that losing some of them would be a challenge. What do you think the fact that some of these programs that predate any of the financial challenges face just ceasing to exist altogether as a result of these colleges losing funding?
Yeah, it seems unfortunately like kind of a cliche that it's the arts that are the first to go. And this is not just through the colleges. Like, I know that in the secondary school system and things that it's often the case that the art studio becomes all of a sudden like a mobile cart that someone like moves from classroom to classroom, different things like that. So I don't know specifically about the music program at VIU. I've heard, like not being a Nanaimo resident myself, but I've heard that it's had a massive negative impact on the music and arts community there. I suppose that probably the music program has some similarities to a fine arts program in that they have different requirements than a lot of other programs. So they would need like practice spaces, recording booths, I assume, and sort of like different soundproofing elements, as well as like a performance hall or something. These are all just assumptions. In the same way that, we need space and equipment in a different way than programs where all you need is a desk and a chair and students bring their laptop. But again, like if we lose these things, then we can't just get them back because all that equipment and space and specialized elements are already in place.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to the conversation about the fine arts program at NIC or the potential suspension it's facing?
Yeah. I suppose I'm worried that if all of these cancellations go through, that there will be such a lack of diversity at North Island College in terms of programs. If we turn to a college that is just emphasizing trades and nursing or something like, and these are obviously important things to have as well, but if these are the only options we're giving students, NIC is just going to become very narrow in terms of the amount of people it can attract, and its role in the community will change drastically as well. So right now, we have, like I said, people who are still in high school all the way up to people who are, in their 70s that have the ability to expand their mind in different ways and maybe also incorporate vocational training with that. But I think it's important that we give students a more broad options that they can take education close to home rather than having to move away.
Scott Bertram, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for talking to me.
Scott Bertram has been a sessional instructor at North Island College's Fine Arts program for 9 years. Midcoast Morning reached out to North Island College and was told that they did not have anyone available for an interview. According to the college's policy statement on suspensions and cancellations, suspension refers to an existing academic credentialed program where the intake of new students is temporarily suspended and removed from the academic calendar for a period of up to 2 years. For some perspective on the situation from the local art scene, I spoke with Glenn Sanford, Executive Director of the Comox Valley Art Gallery. What can you tell me about how the Fine Arts program at North Island College fits into the wider art scene in the Valley?
Oh, it's absolutely integral. Having a proper arts education facility up at North Island College provides opportunities for young people in our community, but also people that want to move to our community to start their careers. But it also is tailor built to be an arts facility. So they have incredible equipment there that is really useful for the production of artwork and serves a broader community purpose beyond being a post-secondary institution. But there's a few other things I would say about that too. That arts program at North Island College, although I referred to young people and it plays a super important role that way, also has a high number of older folks that are revisiting their careers and actively pursuing a fine arts career. And it's really intergenerational, and it is so linked to all of the arts facilities in the Comox Valley and the community as a whole.
Are there any other educational opportunities for people, be they young or old, in the Comox Valley that are at all comparable to this program at North Island College?
Not at all. The North Island College is a unique program that is a post-secondary program. There's nothing else like it in the Comox Valley, and it's hard to come by on Vancouver Island, as in Nanaimo even. The potential for post-secondary arts has, been undermined in recent years. So I just think that it is really important for the region as a whole to maintain a place where people can study fine arts and learn about fine arts and artistic production, and in a way that is, so connected to this region.
If this program is suspended with no clear plans to bring it back, what is lost in the Valley?
Well, so first of all, let me just say there's an Orwellian component to this that is that I can't help but remark on. When they say suspended, that's in my opinion a polite way of saying it's going to be terminated, because these programs don't come back to life. Once the suspension starts, it's a process of killing it off. And the other thing that I would say is that, we hear other Orwellian type language. This is part of an expedited program impact assessment, is what they're calling this whole process. But what it really is that on a very short timelines, the community has been dealt this really devastating news about what is going to have a tremendously negative impact on the cultural community in the Comox Valley. And I'm going to go beyond that. I'm going to say it's more than just the cultural community. It is the community as a whole. Like, not only does arts and culture mean so much to the viability and livability of the community, it's also a crucial economic generator. The Comox Valley has an extremely high portion of artists per capita, people who make their living from the arts. And to cut off this kind of training facility is to really inflict harm on our community.
How has the arts community responded to the news of what could happen to this program?
Well, I'm going to say with shock and disappointment, first and foremost, followed by people organizing to make presentations to the North Island College Board of Governors, to rally support, start petitions, do all of that kind of stuff to try to fight to save this really important facility, and if they and education program, and so I would say that people are. We've only been receiving the news fully for a few days now, and but people are moving quickly to try to take action to make sure that this plan doesn't proceed.
You mentioned presentations there. What kinds of action are people within the community taking? Well,
so on Sunday, this last Sunday, there was a meeting of some key activists, especially from the student side, who were starting the process of organizing. They started an online petition. There's a website that people can visit to try to push back on this stuff. And it also includes information, including the one really important piece of information is that the Board of Governors at North Island College plans to make this decision on February 5th at a meeting, but tomorrow, Wednesday, January 21st, is the deadline for applying to make a presentation. So people are getting ready to go to try to speak directly to the Board of Governors about why this is the wrong direction.
What kind of hope do you have for what could be decided at that February 5th meeting? Do you have hope that this decision could still be reconsidered, or does this feel final to you?
Yeah, so let's be clear. The decision is not final yet. So there is always hope. They haven't made the decision. This board meeting is when they're scheduled to make a decision. At the very least, I think that there's a good chance that we could ask them to reconsider or postpone making a final decision until they've had a chance to learn more from the community. Because I think that they're going to hear loudly and clearly from all levels of government, from local business, the arts community, the First Nation. All of these are folks that are going to say this will be harmful to our community, and I think they need to pay attention to it. These kinds of campuses like North Island College, they're supposedly all about being connected deeply to a community, and when they realize what a slap in the face most community members will feel this to be, they'll reconsider and recognize the absolutely crucial role this program plays in all facets of the community, including our economic health.
Now, as you alluded to there, talking about economic health, post-secondary institutions all across the province are facing challenges related to systemic issues, perhaps exacerbated by changes to federal rules around the number of international students that could enroll. And these decisions to potentially cancel or suspend programs aren't kind of coming out of nowhere. What do you think it's important to highlight about the fine arts program in light of the situation? Is there are these financial challenges and programs are being suspended in light of that? What do you think it's important to bring to the conversation about that and about how fine arts fits in with that?
Sure. So you raise a really important point, which is I don't want to fall into a divide and conquer scenario where we are saying, oh, throw other programs under the bus. Ours is the only important one. I think that this is connected overall to the importance of education, post-secondary education, access, community involvement in local colleges. This is crucial. And so I think that this needs to be seen as in part a larger fight to make sure that our post-secondary education institutions in general are properly funded to meet the needs of our communities. And I think that there is a ton of research that shows how investments in education pay off economically. But I'm going to take that a step further and say investments in the arts also pay off tremendously. In addition to the benefit of, in fact, having a healthier cultural community, you have an economic ripple effect that is beneficial to communities. So you can make that argument about education in general, but you can really make it about fine arts in particular.
Is there anything else you think it's important to bring to the conversation today on this?
Well, I think it's just really important to say it's that these kinds of decisions, they need to be done in a more careful and thoughtful way to find yourself under the gun to make an argument to the Board of Governors on very short notice about the importance of something so significant to our entire community just doesn't seem like the right way to go. I understand that they are facing a financial crunch, and that is not, that like I don't envy the position of the Board of Governors trying to deal with all of the things that they have to deal with. But to be really sort of part of the solution to education underfunding, they need to work with the community on timelines that work so that we can speak as one voice and identify what is beneficial to our community.
Glenn Sanford, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with me on this.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
Glenn Sanford, Executive Director of the Comox Valley Art Gallery.
Midcoast Morning is part of our nonprofit newsroom project, supported by listeners like you. Keep this program on the air by funding it today with a monthly sustaining donation at chly.ca/donate. We've got tote bags and shirts if you need an incentive.
We're speaking about the proposed suspension of North Island College's Fine Arts program in the Comox Valley on today's program. It's one of 15 programs that are being recommended for suspension following a review process. The school's Board of Governors is expected to make a decision on program suspensions at a February 5th meeting. Ann Cumming recently completed the Fine Arts program at North Island College. Before that, she'd also been teaching at the school for 25 years. I spoke with her about the situation.
I just finished the 2-year diploma program at North Island College, all the required courses for the Fine Arts diploma program. And I started that during COVID, right after I retired from having taught English at North Island College for 25 years. So I was a mature student. in a class full of, I was usually the oldest person in the class. Yeah.
What made you decide to enroll in the fine arts program?
Oh, I initially just wanted to take a couple of courses in fine arts after retirement. But then when I started to do that, when I started to take courses, I realized what a great program it was, and I didn't want to stop. So I just kept taking courses.
And what has your reaction been to hearing the news that the fine arts program is potentially facing suspension?
Well, my very first reaction was grief. I was, grief stricken, and then as the information sort of entered my consciousness in a deeper way, I had sleepless nights. I tossed and turned, and I thought, wow, I really have to say something. This is just, it's wrong. You know how sometimes you just know when something is wrong, and you just have to say something. This was one of those times. I thought this can't happen. They don't know what they're doing.
What made you have that feeling? What do you think to you felt so wrong about this?
I think the integrity of that program and what it does for the students of the North Island who find themselves in there is not understood or appreciated beyond the people who are a big part of it. And I guess because I had been in the college system teaching for 25 years, same college, before I went into that program, it was almost the minute I walked into the first classroom, I thought, wow, there's something really special about this. And that feeling and experience never went away the 5 years that I was a part-time student there. And I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, but I just felt like I needed to say something about that. But it seemed like maybe the whole decision is just being made based on financial considerations. There are other ways to make decisions about value without having to look at cost, financial cost.
You wrote a letter to the Board of Governors of the college about this situation. That letter is 3 pages long. There were a lot of things you touched on that I want to ask you about. Yeah, you shared it with me. What were you mainly hoping to communicate in that letter?
Yeah, I asked myself that same question before I wrote it. Like, what is it that I want to say? What's the most important thing? And I wasn't writing it to try to influence or to. It was more like, do you guys know this stuff? Do you know this about this program? Do you know how important it is to our small communities? How important it is to the students who show up and come there and move on into art-related lives. I won't say careers, but lives that might include careers. Some people come in for 2 years or 3 years, and then they go back to Sontula, or they go back to Cortez. I guess I have pretty deep feelings about the value, and I really wanted to talk about value, in a more subjective way.
One of the things you wrote in your letter was that students who enter the fine arts program often, although not always, enter it with a sense of being out of step with the world around them. Could you tell me more about that idea?
I think a lot of people who grow up in a fine arts program anywhere maybe are people who weren't in the leadership classes in their high schools, or they didn't do the debating club, or they weren't on the sports team. They might have been the thinkers or the quiet people in the corner of the classroom, or the people who were, I don't know, Harry Potter fans, or or know everything about Star Wars, and they're not, well, to use an old metaphor, they're marching to a tune of a different drummer. And these classes, these fine arts classes, are kind of a meeting place where they kind of meet each other, because they're from different classrooms and from different schools throughout the region, and then they show up in North Island College, and they're like, oh, they recognize each other and they build each other up.
In your letter, you described the fine arts program as a jewel in the crown of North Island College. What do you feel will be lost if this program is suspended?
The heart and soul of the Comox Valley campus.
Is there anything else you think it's important to let people know about the current situation, or even just your experience in this program at North Island College after teaching there for so long?
The only other thing I thought about after I sent the letter off is I thought, I forgot to mention the importance of having art in communities where the artists live. So if now art students need to go to Victoria or the Lower Mainland to do their studies in art, then they're not going to be in the communities that they come from and the communities where they live or where they grew up. And so they're going to be out and away from their social background, their cultural background, and their geographic background. I'm sure there are other elements that are part of what makes up a human being. So if people are doing art in the communities they live in, they're doing art that is of that community. It becomes part of the expression of that community, whether it's deliberate or not. That's what happens. If you send all your artists to the cities, then those influences of, I don't know, the rain dripping off the willow tree or whatever it is that's in your backyard or are not the same. They're different influences, and so the art will be different. And if we think art is important, and if we think local art is important, then we are running a sword through the gut of local art.
Is that situation a different aspect of it kind of highlighted by your own experience? So you've mentioned that there would be people who, if they were going to study art and they were from the Comox Valley, if this program didn't exist, they would now have to leave the community. Are there people who are in the community, in your case, is this a program that you pursued? Is fine arts something that you did and studied and pursued because it was available in your community, and it's not something you would have done if you didn't have the option to do it where you live?
I remember when I was applying to enter the program, one of the questions was, why do you want to study fine arts at North Island College? And one of my answers was a very pragmatic one, which was because this is where I live and I'm not willing or able to move away at this point. That was definitely a big factor. If I had upon retirement decided to go to art school, but the only option had been Victoria, I wouldn't have moved to Victoria. I have family and friends and a life here. So I wasn't going to move. And I mean, the same thing I'm starting the master's program at Emily Carr in the fall of 2026, and it's the low residency program. I can stay home. I can be where I live in the environment I live in and do my studies from here and just go to Vancouver for a few weeks in the summer.
You're going to be doing grad school in fine art. Is that something you could have done if this program didn't exist?
Oh, unless, yes, I'm doing grad school in fine art, and no, I that would not have opened up to me if I hadn't gone to North Island College to take fine arts courses. I was not an artist when I started at North Island College. I was a English teacher. I read books and taught English, business writing, and so no. The whole art thing for me was something that just exploded over the past 5 years, and I thought, wow, I actually really, this is really interesting. I like this. This is fun. It's engaging. I like these people. And so as I was coming to an end of my studies at NIC, I thought, wow, I wonder what I'm going to do next. Like, do I just stop now? And so kind of as a test, I guess, I thought, well, maybe I'll see if I can get into the low residency program at Emily Carr. So I applied thinking, well, that the odds were pretty low because I only had a 2-year diploma in fine arts, not a 4-year degree. But somehow I got into that program, and so my life has taken quite a drastic turn, I'd say.
And what is that all meant to you? What is that journey with the arts, that turn towards the arts? Now you're doing grad school in the arts. What has that all meant for you?
Well, that's a really, that's a kind of a deep question, or the answer can be pretty deep. But right on the surface, I kind of thought that when I retired, I'd just be riding my bike a lot and getting fit and eating salty food and drinking beer at pubs and, hanging out with people my age. But because there was this niggling voice in me when I retired saying, okay, well, why don't you just try to see if, sculpture, just try sculpture. And so I listened to that niggling voice, and now here I am, really, preparing to go to grad school, preparing to put a show together for the spring of 2027, a self-organized show, and, with a pretty large body of work, and I'm engaged in everything that I'm doing. And okay, I can tell you one more thing. When I started at art school, I was the classes would be 4 hours long, and I was tired. Like, I thought, wow, I'm tired. I wanted to have a nap after 2 hours. And I thought, I better, I want to do this, but I'm too tired. I better figure out how not to be so tired. And so then I kind of looked at my diet, and I rejigged how I ate and what I ate. I joined a gym. I joined a gym. I'm now weightlifting, weight training, 4 days a week. I feel extremely active and engaged in the world. And I'm sure it's probably way better than riding my bike and drinking beer at pubs.
All thanks to fine arts.
Yeah, I got to say, it sure feels that way to me. Yeah.
Anne Cumming, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me about it.
All right. Thanks, Joe.
Anne Cumming is a graduate of North Island College's Fine Arts program. She also taught English at the school for 25 years before retiring. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and RB Frew is our technical advisor. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. You can get in touch with us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
This program gives thanks to the Snuneymuxw First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.